This is my new coffee cup from the Church Split, a great YouTube channel and podcast if you're into theology and apologetics and the kind of stuff we talk about here, but with
better looking hosts, probably.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, I didn't expect you to say that. So here we are today, and I'm glad that you all are here. Thank you for showing up. We are going to take a look at the topic of the afterlife. Now, Jonathan, allow me, if you will, to give a little bit of a preamble to this.
Yeah, before you do that, I want to give a shout out to Kevin Sutton, because I was digging through what Facebook has this thing called message requests. Now, my inbox for just my normal messenger is always full, and then I discovered I have a marketplace mailbox and a message request, which had a lot of colorful messages in there from people who need Jesus. And one of those was not like the others who needed Jesus, but it was Kevin Sutton, who answered the pull-up challenge. Richard, who is not honestly atheist, the faithiest atheist, has not so far, but I guess Kevin hunted me down, and if you send a message to someone who's not a friend, they end up in your requests folder. But I discovered that he sent him doing some pull-ups, and he did some. He got his head over the bar 20 and a half times. I would say that he probably got 7 or 8 solid pull-ups out of that. The rest of it looked like...
Okay, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Testing. Now you speak.
Testing.
Something is wrong. They can't hear you.
They can't hear me.
Now speak.
Now my microphone is going crazy. Check, testing, 1, 2.
Yeah, and speak loudly and clearly and closely.
Haveth no mic which to speak of. Okay, so yeah, I was saying, Kevin did answer the challenge. Found his... and I sent him a friend request, and I don't think he accepted it. But I was chatting with him. He's next door in Lexington, Kentucky. But anyway, Richard hasn't. But yeah, he got his head over the bar 20 times or so. But I'm not counting them all as pull-ups, because to me...
This Kevin?
Yeah.
What happened, Kevin?
He's
I thought you did great.
Too.
You did way better than I could have.
Yeah, no, he did really good. I mean, he did get his head over the bar 20 and a half times is what he counted it. But I consider a pull-up from not a dead hang, but from an active dead hang, where you have your scapula retracted and then all the way up and all the way down.
Yeah.
And so I gave him 21 sloppy pull-ups in return, but
he
10,
says just accepted.
Yeah, 10. Oh, good, thank you. 10 solid pull-ups. But yeah, I mean, he's got like the whole get up. He's got like a rack and all of that, a power rack, which you don't have any clue what that is, but it's something that you can do squats and you can do bench press and all that.
Exercise.
Yeah, and I just have a doorway pull-up bar here at the office, so his setup is way more impressive. And he, like I said, he's a blues guitar player.
Do you think anyone...
We ought to go visit Lexington. He can.
We could visit you. We don't live that far. Before you say anything else, folks, this is the Friday live stream. It's much more casual. A lot more of this adorable banter that doesn't always go somewhere. Although we are going to talk about the main point. Carry on.
No, I'm done.
That's it?
I'm just waiting for Richard to see what he has. But yeah, Kevin is... standing up for Team Atheist, head over the bar 20 and a half times.
All right. So the thing we're going to talk about today, this is going to seem like a promotion, but as another YouTuber who recently covered me found out, I'm not trying to make massive money off of my books. I think that's silly unless you're ridiculously famous anyway. So I do have a book, and here's a review of the book from somebody. This used to be your favorite book from me, or is still your favorite book from me?
No, Letters to Ignorantia is my favorite book from you.
Oh,
That was my legitimate favorite book from you.
Mm-hmm.
My fake favorite book is the one that you don't like anymore, which is Blinding Lights, but I love to razz you about it. But before you continue to self-promote, Kevin says, ha, 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 thank you. I'm still new to whole fitness. Me too. I've only been doing this for the first time in 10, 12 years since... late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah, so don't feel bad.
If you talk about clinically
more sports
obese,
stuff,
I was
exercise.
Everyone knows that I was
morbidly obese.
Of course, we talk about it every episode, and all the exercise stuff.
So I feel you, brother. I was right there with you.
Yeah. So this book I wrote because, real quickly, my father has a rare genetic blood disease. You probably heard me talk about before, just as you've heard about Jonathan's exercise stuff. But because of that, for much of my life, all of my life, and not excluding the early parts of my life, I was constantly told, either directly or I just realized indirectly from listening to family conversations, that your father may not be around that long.
Yeah, what's the name of that again?
Von Willebrand's disease. People think they know a lot about it, but he's got stage 3. There's not a higher stage is the only reason he has stage 3. And according to Mayo Clinic, no one his age that has lived as long as he has it as bad as he has that we know about.
What he said to me, he says, I'm a bleeder. Which basically what this disease does is if you cut yourself shaving.
If he falls and scrapes a knee, he could bleed to death. If he bites his tongue chewing something, he could bleed to death. In fact, one time when I was young and we lived in Jacksonville, Florida, we had to drive to Nashville, Tennessee to see a particular doctor who specialized because my father had bit his tongue and bled for like a week or something, like some long period of time, several days. So it's really bad. I've always been told he's probably not going to live. Well, in my late 20s, I really started having a problem with death. And that was not in spite of my Christian beliefs. It was a strange thing. I've heard William Lane Craig talk about this with his father, that it was as though when he was watching his father die, the cold hand of death crept onto his shoulder and said, "This will be you one day." In my case, it wasn't even so much that I was worried about myself, although that did become part of it. It was more that I didn't want to live without my father. And of course, your Christian beliefs there help some in that we're not to despair like others who have no hope. 1 Thessalonians 4-ish, 13 following. But so I have hope that I would see my father again one day, but not anytime soon. And that was a horrifying concept to me. And you certainly realize that as someone who's lost a father. So that was a concern. And I really worked through this. Why am I so troubled about death? Shouldn't my Christianity help with this? And so I found that it absolutely did. And after I wrote this book, I'm telling you, I haven't really had a problem with death ever since. This was the answer. I could put my hands on this and know I dealt with it. This is what I think about it. And in that book, I included the quote from Gandalf that we're going to talk about today. Now, this is going to sound like really horrible because I'm not a dyed-in-the-wool like Tolkien fanatic. And so as a result, the quote I'm giving you is from the movie Return of the King. And I included it in the book Death is a Doorway at the beginning of one of the chapters because I think it's great. So I don't know what Tolkien actually said, but here is the quote. It says, and this is when they're inside the castle, the fortress, whatever, they're at the city, they're at the end of Return of the King. This is before the Ghost Army comes through and uses cheat codes to win for everyone, basically. But
what that was.
But when everybody's about to die and they're barricaded, they're like trying to bash in the door to the city, the gates of the city. I don't know if it's Pippin or Merry, but one of the little hobbits, the secondary hobbit characters, says, starts worrying about death. And Gandalf says this, "End? No, the journey does not end here. Death is just another path, one that we all must take. The grey rain curtain of the world rolls back and all turns to silver glass." There was a little Scottish in there. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
he might be Scottish.
The amount of effort not to do a
and then you
full
see
eye roll.
it. White shores and beyond, a far green country under a swift sunrise. And then Pippin or Merry, whichever it is, says, "Well, that doesn't sound so bad." It's just a really brilliant thing, a really powerful moment in the story and powerful moment of storytelling and encapsulates hope and all these things. That's Gandalf's position on the afterlife. It's at least for you, Pippin or Merry, it's a good one. It's something not to be afraid of. It's not the end. It goes on. Now, what does Sir Ian McKellen say about that? Because these are two different people, right?
One's real and one's fictional.
One is fictional, one is real. But the one that's fictional isn't entirely fictional. I mean, it's a fictional character. But these characters in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit are mouthpieces. They are bullhorns for Tolkien to say whatever he wants, right? Yes. And so it's not as though these are just completely out of nowhere. But what does Sir Ian McKellen say? Well, in an interview, this is from a BuzzFeed article linked in this in the description. In an interview with Men's Journal, the lauded actor minced no words about his feelings on religion. I don't understand religion. I don't get it at all. I won't go on further than that.
Please.
I understand, because my Sir Ian McKellen, turns out, is no different than my Richard Dawkins, and I don't want people to get confused. I don't understand religion. I don't get it at all. I understand why people need it, but I think they're wrong. They don't. I do see that on a crudish level. When someone dies, it's nice and comforting to think that they're going to heaven and that they're going to be wrapped up warm in eternity, for eternity, but they're not. Heaven doesn't exist.
They make claims after all.
If you think, if you just think about it for a minute. Okay, now this is important, and I recognize Sir Ian McKellen is not a philosopher. If he is, I don't know about it, and if he is, he's a crummy one here, according to this. But I realize that, but we're still, this is the important moment. If you just think about it for a minute, now this is what should convince you, right? This is why he thinks this. If you just think about it for a minute, the person is dead. They're gone. They're not coming back, and you'll never see them again. Jonathan, why all the apologetics? Why don't we just think about it for a minute? It becomes abundantly obvious.
Yeah, exactly.
The person is dead. They're gone. They're not coming back, and you'll never see them again. And when you go, you'll never see anybody again. Just face it. I feel stronger because of it, knowing that I can't lean on religion to get through life. If you are leaning on it, you won't be living your life to the fullest. So in one case, we have the character Gandalf saying something hopeful, beautiful, poetic, but possibly pointing to something real. And then we have the person who plays Gandalf basically just saying, I mean, come on, right? I mean, that's basically what this amounts to is, come on, man. I mean, yeah, but come on, right? It's the essence of new atheism as it is sometimes displayed on YouTube and on the internet. Generally, it is this, yeah, but come on, man. I mean, come on. Sky Daddy. I mean, come on. It's that sort of an impression. And obviously, we're not getting his fuller thoughts on this, but I think we have enough here to make a comparison. I mean, we didn't get much from Gandalf, and talk about it a little bit. So, Jonathan, what's your assessment of what we've just heard?
He starts off with, I don't understand religion. I don't get it at all. And then he says, I understand why people need it, but I think they're wrong. Well, if you don't understand religion, then how can you say you understand why people need it, right?
Yeah. Maybe that's your problem. Yeah, I don't understand religion.
Right. I don't need religion. Do you need religion, Braxton? Mm-hmm. I agree with him that I don't need it. I really don't. Let me be fair to Christopher Hitchens for a second. I actually agree with Christopher Hitchens that if he's right, and if Sir Ian McKellen is right, when I'm dead, I won't care because there won't be a me to care, right? So accepting that premise, I totally get it. That's right. So I don't need religion, and I don't need to fear death or whatever because I know I'm going to die, and I know that, at least atheists and Christians can agree on this much. This is our one go around. This life is our one go around in this world as it is.
Yeah.
So that's common ground. So look there, finding common ground at the front. Now, is it nice to think that, and I recognize that I'm talking as a Christian after over 26, however many years of reflecting on this, right? But that's fine. That's part of life. I don't know if I needed this as like a emotional crutch at any point. There are points where I can say that I still do now.
It has that benefit.
But as far as like, I want to continue existence. That's not why that's not conviction of my sin was why I wanted to become a Christian. This, my conversion, right, at Geyer Springs Baptist Church in Little Rock, Arkansas. So I don't know it's nice to think, but you also have people who are trying to have some sort of Gnostic or Neoplatonic idea of transferring their consciousness and their neural information to a computer so that they can have a continued disembodied existence. That does not sound appealing to me at all, to just have conscious awareness in a machine.
Right.
right? And I don't care how good you make the machine that, it can, if you touch Data's arm, he has that chip that the Borg gave him.
Well, that's if he has an android body, but just being in a computer virtual reality could be horrible too.
Continued consciousness sounds awful. That sounds worse.
Without an embodied
That sounds
state.
worse. Yeah, disembodied, endless consciousness sounds worse than what Hitchens thinks heaven as a celestial theme park sounds as bad.
Right.
I mean, this stuff is worse.
Mm-hmm.
So that has that has no appeal to me. But the idea of a continued resurrected, because Christianity's emphasis is on, your body, you're going to have a new body, right? It's going to be a continued embodied existence. And that is appealing and something to hope for. But but that's not a selling point. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Eternal life is the consequence and result of faithfulness to Jesus, right? So I guess you could say that's a selling point, but it's not like, I want to live forever, so I'm going to believe in Jesus, is not what happened to me, even when I first confessed Jesus as Lord.
Yeah, and that's a really good way of taking your personal experience and saying, does it match what he's kind of describing? I'll tell you one thing that came to me was, whatever, and maybe Lord of the Rings geeks know. I mean, I understand that Gandalf is not a wizard in the traditional conception of a wizard. He's that and more. He's more like an angel or something in the world of Middle Earth. But all that said, we don't know how Gandalf claims to have his information, right? But we do know what Sir Ian McKellen seems to be expressing here. Now, someone mentioned earlier, well, hey, look, he grew up in a time when it wasn't friendly to homosexuals. And there's all these kind of reasons he wouldn't be for religion. Well, that's fine. But in this case, he didn't say that. Or did he? I don't think that he said anything like that. What he seems to be describing is that he doesn't get any benefit using religion as a crutch. And if you just think about it, it's not true. They're just gone. They're just dead. And this sounds to me like he's relying somewhat on intuition. As as I've said on the show, I think intuition is powerful. And it's particularly powerful when, let's say you say something like the Swinburne sort of way of looking at it, where you say something like, it's almost, I'm so, like with your own existence, I intuit that I exist so strongly that it seems almost impossible to doubt. Like, what sort of information would you have to give me to convince me evidentially that I don't exist, right? That seems almost impossible. Let's move it up the scale a little bit and talk about morality a little bit more. You could say, okay, with morality, I have this extremely strong intuition in objective morality, that morality is objective and is binding on all people and that sort of thing. What sort of evidence would you have to give me to convince me that that's not, that would overturn my immediate experience, my internal awareness of morality? Now, move it up the scale. We're starting to lose people as we go about your intuitions as we get deeper. Then I would go to free will and talk about that and all those kind of things. But does Ian McKellen have a belief about, let's say this. Is it generally true about people that they have a belief about the afterlife, namely that it doesn't exist, that is so strong that it seems impossible for those people to doubt it? And I would say, I think I don't think so. I think that we might intuitively have opinions about this, but there's two problems. The first problem is, even if he had been raised with no impulse toward afterlife type beliefs, even if he just kind of came to it fresh, the problem there would still be like, okay, that's your intuition, but how strong is that intuition? And does the evidence actually overcome it? And the second problem, I can't remember what I was about to say about the second problem with that, but there's a couple of problems with this. Now, when you go to the other side, this is just kind of a realm, afterlife things, that I'm not sure the intuitions can take you that way. I think an intuition can get you there in another way. Let's think about how a little bit of information might guide our intuitions. And the atheist can be happy to provide a little context for their worldview to guide intuitions as well. This is what Daniel Dennett calls an intuition pump. It's a way of thinking about things that gets your intuitions up to the level where you can make a decision. And to a certain degree, that's what we're doing with arguments all the time anyway. But when you're talking about the Christian side of this, or the afterlife side of this, Think about how it changes what your intuitions get you if you grant this much. There's a God. Now, I realize there's a lot of atheists here and even in the chat, and they would say, okay, well, I can't grant that with you. Fair enough. We'll come back to that later, perhaps even in another episode, and talk about theistic arguments and things. We did that a little bit earlier this week with Jonathan McClatchy.
We got like a gazillion videos.
And we've got a gazillion
we have a whole
videos
back
about that.
catalog of art.
But just think about this as a thought experiment, even if you don't grant God's existence. If you can grant, okay, at least this much, I think that at least one of the theistic arguments gives real good reason to believe that there is a God, even if you don't think it's conclusive. Okay, now from there, what intuitively follows about the afterlife now? I think the what intuitively follows is, okay, hold on. One thing that I've noticed for a long time, and this actually you don't even need to imagine God as an atheist to get there, is my intuitions have never been, he's dead and he's just dead. Now, I've thought that about animals. But the thing about it is, when I look at a person like Brother Alvin Pollard, who I love, who was my children's church pastor, he died a couple of years ago. And I'm like, I can't really even put myself in the space where that personality, that huge personality of that man that I knew just doesn't exist anywhere at all. Now, you say, well, you don't, that's completely just a wish fulfillment or whatever. No, it's my intuition. I'm not claiming I have any evidence beyond that at this point in the discussion. I'm just saying my intuition about death is, of course, there's more. Other people's intuitions about death apparently is, it seems like
tied into that, though, is a network of beliefs that would include substance dualism, for example.
But I'm saying, and I can't really divorce myself entirely, and many of the people who are even atheists here can't. But when we were kids growing up, that's the closest you can get, where you didn't have the answers to all these theological and philosophical speculations. And I still always just thought, just the notion that he's dead, but you're right. Once you do build in, you can still look back at your intuitions, and that's kind of what I'm saying.
So when you were a kid, did you have a goldfish that got flushed down the commode?
No.
Okay. But pretend that you did.
Okay.
What is it about the human person that makes you think can't be the end when, there's a dead squirrel on the road or my goldfish?
I have reasons, obviously, right? Because I've done a whole thing on consciousness, and we have a lot of stuff on that.
Right, no,
but intuitively speaking.
Yeah, for the kid.
I don't know. That's the thing. It's an intuition, right? It's not based on nothing, right? But it's not like I can prove it, right? It's just that. But I'm going further with this.
But my intuition would be, even at a young age, would be, we're not like all these other animals. I mean, that is patently obvious.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's obvious in the question you're asking me. You thought that you would think that about an animal. You don't think that about people. Why?
Yeah.
Well, they're animals and we're people. And part of that we could splay out with the same things you and I talk about when we talk about image of God type stuff. Like we seem to have free will because partly we have hierarchical thinking and creativity.
That you can intuit that at a very young age, that we are not like the squirrels.
Yeah.
Because the second you walk out of a structure that's more complicated than a bird's nest, right, or a beaver dam or something like, and then you're having conversations, even at a young age, you just intuit that there's something different about the human species than all other species.
Right. And so
even the possibility to intuit things, maybe.
Yes.
Or introspection, at least.
As opposed to instinct or something.
Yeah.
I think that's true. But where I want to go further with this is, yes, as you stack on things, look at how your intuitions change in a robust way. If you did at least believe in God, and this is what I wanted to get to. Think about this and where your intuitions take you on this, is if there is a God and you think he's morally, he's a moral God. I mean, some of the arguments do get you there. And in fact, things like, things that get you to like perfect being theism or something get you there. So let's just say you at least believe there's a good God. I know you think that's a big ask if you're an atheist out there, but honestly, there are many, many theists who don't have a particular religion, but at least think that there's a God. I'm just asking you to grant it for now. If that were the case, what about the afterlife? Well, if he's a good God, then he has to be a just God. Now, if he's a just God, then we know, I would say, of certain cases on earth where justice wasn't done for the abused or for the abuser. If he's a good God, and that's the case, and I think we have evidence for all of that, then guess what? We have evidence that in some place after death, that justice will be doled out. Now, is that a proof? No, I'm just saying, look at what I think your intuitions can move fast and far once there's a God. But anyway.
Well, yeah. Of course, not just atheists, but when you think about just theists who don't affirm Christianity, this idea, he jumps that you will see someone in heaven. That kind of goes back to the bad eschatology of Christianity for probably when he was most familiar with it, were heaven instead of the new heavens and new earth. And I'm so thankful that N.T. Wright pushed back on that, even though everyone howls at the moon about it, or at least him. But yeah, this idea of going away. A lot of theists affirm that. They think, typically if you're a good person, then you go to a good place, and if you're a bad person, you go to the bad place. Mm-hmm. And kind of a generic afterlife.
Or some good, some bad.
But afterlife
or some good,
ideas
some less
go
good.
back. I mean, even as far back as the Epic of Gilgamesh, they had afterlife ideas,
this is actually what we hear. This is actually a twisting of an argument we hear from atheists. Not an argument really, but a just so story about how religions developed. And I have no doubt really that some religions did develop this way, is the idea that, Bill died. Og
and Zog were sitting by the Nile, and an alligator comes up and eats Og. And
or kills him, and he's laying there and his body's dead, and they're like, wait a minute, and they poke him with a stick. Wake up.
Yeah.
And they poke him, and he won't wake up. Well, where is he? Well, he's not here anymore. Well, he's got to be somewhere. Where is he, right? I'm saying they say that because they think that is like an early man intuition. Yeah. And I'm saying, I think there is an intuition about that.
Why?
Yeah, why is that intuition there? I understand that one might say, well, it's obviously hopeful. It gives you positive encouragement for the future.
That's a piece of the puzzle. I mean, I read Religion Explained by Pascal Boyer, I believe his name was, and he thinks that it's not just afterlife conversations, but a lot of it is just when you think about the, to use the phrase supernatural or whatever, it's an ontological error of attributing something that's pertains to human persons to something like a tree, or a rock, or a sun, or even an invisible deity or whatever. You take something and you make an ontological error about it, and that explains the phenomenon that you can't quite explain yet, and that's kind of became a receptacle for unexplainable and mysterious or even transcendent experience, and religion developed from there. So I don't even know that, but I found his argument utterly unconvincing. And I wrote a refutation of it for my class because I wanted to bug my typical atheist philosophy professor at UCA.
Well, we're going to go to Honestly Atheist in a moment. I did see that you gave one, and we're taking Q&A now, obviously. So anytime
are we done? I mean, there's more to say about it.
Well, okay, I have more to say about it too, but this is related. Okay. Kevin says, do you think that intuition alone is a rational reason to believe something?
No, it's a rational reason to investigate something.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Just see if I just said what I think about this to you here. Kevin may have written this before, so let me just say it this way. I like Richard Swinburne's thing about his argument from religious experience, which involves this statement. If your intuition about something is so strong that it seems, I say it this way, that it seems almost impossible to doubt. All right. Then when it's that strong, then it's just the case that any argument brought to demonstrate to me that thing is not true would rely on one or more premises, and those premises have to be more plausible to me than, more likely to be true, than the content of my immediate intuition about the thing. So to give you another example, or the same example again, think about what your intuition that you exist, or that the external world exists. What would someone have to present you with to demonstrate to you evidentially that you're wrong about that? It seems unfathomable. You're not saying that there isn't such a thing. You're just saying it seems unfathomable. Here's why. And this is so nuanced and so important. It's because the thing, the argument brought to convince you that you're wrong about this, again, would rest on premises that are likely to be less likely true from your perspective, epistemologically, than your immediate experience of that phenomenon. This is really what it all boils down to with the moral issue. You know, it's William Lane Craig's famous moral argument. If God does not exist, objective moral values and duties do not exist. Objective moral values, duties do exist, therefore God exists. Premise 2 is interesting. People didn't used to challenge it as much when he would debate, but then they started challenging it more. And now today you've got people who will just be straightforwardly challenge it. That objective moral values and duties don't exist is what atheists will challenge. And so then the question becomes, why should I believe that objective moral values and duties do exist? This is what it comes down to if that gets pressed far enough, I think. And it is this question of what your intuitions tell you. Many people, if not most, will think about this and say, no, my immediate experience of morality, my instant knowledge that it is wrong to torture children just because you enjoy the sound of their screams or whatever, that is wrong and objectively wrong, and not a matter of opinion that it's wrong. It's meta, in a meta sense, it's wrong, and all of that. That is more powerful, that immediate knowledge about all that, than the premises of the argument you're going to present me with to show me that it's not the case. And so that's kind of how that goes. And so I hope that answers your question. So I don't think it can be if you just say, well, I intuit that it's okay to sleep with my girlfriend. Well, hold on now. let's back up a little bit, and I know people will say, no, take that seriously. Fine. We could take that seriously and walk through it. And I think you would find that this isn't, that it isn't like this. What you feel is a strong physical desire, but that's a different question from what is intuitively true or right and wrong morally or anything else. So anyway, hope that helps. All right. Honestly, Atheist says, and I like this question. Whoa, why did that go so big? You can see I'm playing around with different formats here, and I kind of like this one, but I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. Have to talk to Cameron. All right. Do you believe there is an appropriate Christian position on the issue of firearm regulations? If not, what is your personal stance on the issue? Thank you. And Jonathan, since you're more interested in the political side of things on this, and you were just asking me what I thought about something related to it before we started, why don't you take this one? I've been talking about it.
Okay, so I have I used to be pro-gun regulation. In fact, it was funny because I guess about a month ago, I went and screen capped some old, I guess from your memories or whatever, from Facebook posts where I was posting screenshots of old Facebook posts on my wall about gun control and these people are crazy or whatever. And, it's funny how, I guess that was in 2012, and how 10 years, because I posted, this was me 10 years ago. And then like nowadays I'm like, I want a bazooka. At 44 years old, I became a gun owner for the first time of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I don't know that there is an appropriate or a single Christian position.
Yeah, I just say no.
Yeah, but I'm happy to give my personal stance. Joe Biden gave misinformation when he said that there's limits to the Second Amendment. You couldn't hold a cannon. Yes, you could. There's letters talking about how privateers can have cannons on their private ships.
And people have property in the United States with cannons sitting on it, folks.
Yeah, you can go buy a cannon now. So when that was written, private citizens who are the citizens of the United States are the regulated militia, were allowed to have the same weapons that the military had. And so I still believe, in an absolute sense, that you should be able to have a nuclear bomb if you want a nuclear bomb under the Second Amendment. Now, I think that we should regulate that, but I think that you need to, but if you're going by an originalist position that you can have the same weapons that the military has.
Right. But of course they didn't foresee things like this, and we don't know what they would have thought.
Right. Exactly. So I'm saying.
But what's the original point, right? What you just said. To function as a militia against a tyrannical government.
Yeah. Ours or any foreign.
Okay. So.
Yeah. So I am now a 100%, I want a bazooka pro to have a gun. And of course I am, just heartbroken over this incident.
Would you limit it to? Would you limit it
to?
Would you limit that if it meant less of, like? Let's say you had this option. I want conservatives to answer this question. Matt Chisholm first asked this question in our group years ago. Thought it was a great question. It's a hypothetical. Some
folks
people get
never
annoyed
say
by
that he doesn't interrupt me in the middle of my sentences.
Right. So here it is. I've stacked up opportunities for this over the years. I have right now something like 20
You're
Audible.
cashing them in.
Yeah, I've got 20 Audible credits.
Well, I was saying something about how awful we feel about the incident in Texas.
Yes, do say that.
But it's disgusting how people have used that to turn this into a discussion about guns. But I do believe in common sense gun laws. You know, jokes aside about owning nukes, though.
I think it's perfectly legitimate.
Yeah.
To talk about gun laws.
But I do
this.
believe that everyone should have a right. And when you talk about common sense gun solutions, 94% of all of these mass shootings happen in gun-free zones. So I'm in favor of single-point entry to schools and protect them with armed security, like we protect worthless politicians in Washington, D.C.
They're not worthless. They're made in the image of God. Go ahead.
There's ontological worthlessness, which they are not, and then there's social function worthlessness, which they absolutely are.
So,
I'm all for.
What did I interrupt you to say?
Protect our kids like we protect our politicians.
Oh yeah, I remember the question. So here's the thing: would you support removal of just what do they call it? Like military grade weapons? Would you agree with the banning of military grade weapons for private citizens if it would mean no more abortions?
Like push a button, all the abortions go away, all the
people still have guns, but they're not military grade guns.
Yeah,
I'd push that button.
I'd push that button too.
Yeah. Anyway, here we go. Jamie Russell.
But that's not how you do issues, though. That's not how you make trade.
I know. I think it gives people an impression kind of how strongly we stand on this. Kind of like when we said, I would vote if my only pro-life option was someone who I held different positions on, even on other stuff that you might expect a Christian, morally speaking, not to want to vote for, like something to do with, gender-related issues that we have strong views about, biblical sexuality and stuff. I'm still voting pro-life, even if it means voting for someone I disagree with on strong issues. That's kind of where I am. And this would be no different, this issue.
Yeah. So if I had to sacrifice my ability to own a tank and a cannon and a bazooka and it meant no more abortions, yeah, I'd take that trade.
Okay, Jamie Russell asks this question. Thank you for that incredible super chat, Jamie. He says, if Abraham isn't dead, but he is alive in heaven, who are the dead in Christ? Brando did it. So my answer to this is dead in that's people that are dead, dead Christians. People are Christians that are dead. Of course, they're still alive in the sense that, on our view, they're in the intermediate state, and they'll certainly be with us in new heaven on a new earth. But the Bible speaks about eternal life, and it's more than everlasting life, being more than just living a long, long time, for one thing. And so, I've even
dead on earth. The Christians
dead on earth is dead. Yeah, you can be. Well, what I've said, like I have a message on death that I've preached in churches and stuff. When I say you're going to go through what we call dying, you're going to go through what the world calls dying, and we're not denying that it is dying in exactly the way people on earth mean dying. Right, the physical body ceases to function in some way, right? But that's a different question than is he alive in Christ, right? So it's like you'll see them talk about sleeping in 1 Corinthians 15 and in other places. It talks about being those who sleep in Christ, or some have fallen asleep, but some still remain. Well, that's talking about dead people, right? And unless you believe in like a full-on soul sleep or just no intermediate state, then you don't probably think they're sleeping anyway, at least all the time, right? So that's a euphemism. And in a similar way, you just got to look at the context for how these words are being used and what they're referring to. If we're referring to people that are dead and what's happening, they're alive right now. Okay, well then we're talking about afterlife living. If we're talking about someone that we know that's true of, like Abraham being dead, okay, well then he was dead. He was physically dead, but alive in Christ, right? Isn't that kind of how you would put all that?
Yeah.
Nothing to add. I'm let down. All right. Derek says, why aren't Roman Catholics typically very evangelical? I think you mean like evangelistic, like trying to reach people for Jesus. I can't say I've never seen a Catholic evangelize other than trying to win believers to the Roman Catholic Church.
Have you given up putting them on the screen?
Oh, did I not put that up? Sorry. There you go.
There we go.
What do you think about that, Jonathan?
In my experience, I've not experienced unevangelistic Catholics to any greater degree than I've experienced evangelicals. I mean, evangelicals aren't very evangelistic anymore. But in fact, my band Slip and Fall, it's a Christian band. We were very evangelistic. We actually gave altar calls in bars.
Were you a Catholic?
Bill Miner, our guitar player, was Roman Catholic. Played.
Is that why you're bringing this up to say a Roman Catholic was technically in a band where someone gave an altar call and so still counts? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I'm just saying I've known evangelistic Catholics. I have too. Like I told you and I think it was Brett at one of our meetings. He was actually in the praise band at Christ the King. There are Catholic churches that are indistinguishable from a contemporary evangelical churches, non-denominational. I mean, they have the praise band and all that.
And here's the thing:
they
to
have
consider.
Those services, and they have people who run around and telling people about Jesus. And so I don't. But that's my experience. That could just be a Southern thing in Arkansas that everyone's evangelistic more so than maybe other parts of the country. But to the degree that anyone was evangelistic, the Catholics I knew were equally as much as Protestants. So that's what. But that's anecdotal. That's my experience.
Yeah, well, I just think that someone might think that the Catholics are broadly non-evangelistic, and they may be judging that from the kind of discussions they see Catholics having on the internet. Well, if I went by the conversations most of my friends are having on the internet, I would think Christians were more interested in arguing about whether you're a Calvinist or an Arminian than whether you know Jesus. Yeah. And that's certainly true of some. But some of the people, like Leighton Flowers, for example, who people might think that about, are actually quite evangelistic. It's just not what that show is about, right? So, so it may be that you're seeing Catholics argue online because that's kind of the nature of doing that kind of thing online. But privately, they're very evangelistic with the people in their community.
I mean, Leighton Flowers and Braxton Hunter are some soul winners.
Amen. Thank you.
I mean, his title is Director of Evangelism and Apologetics. But
Leighton, yeah.
So, I mean, you're more evangelistic than I am for sure.
Look here. Pear character exaggeratedly stretching his arm forward to offer a cup of coffee. Thank you for that sticker so much, Jamie Russell. And Brando wanted us, or Derek wanted us to also know that last question was for Brando. He's concerned about Brando because we all know Brando is a famously Catholic. He's not really, but I said that about him once. He's like, I'm not Catholic. Not that I have anything against Catholics.
Brando is going to send us a message one day saying he wants a kickback for all the donations made in his name. So
probably so.
He's been generating quite a few.
Did I miss one here? Let's see. No,
I don't know.
All right, we're doing good. So, so there was another aspect to this that we could have talked a little bit about. So, this trope about knowing that I can't lean on religion to get through life. If you are leaning on it, you won't be living your life to the fullest. That is such a trope. As if, so atheist, which is it? We're not living life to the fullest, or we want to go be as wicked and sinful as possible, even though you say that's not what you're doing. Right? I mean, what? Or like you can say, someone who becomes a Christian could easily say, I decided I didn't need to use my complete belief in myself as the determiner of everything I'm going to do. I decided to stop using that as a crutch and start submitting to the authority of the universe.
Yeah, I mean, living your life to the fullest.
You can say it about anything. It's chest thumping.
Yeah, what is living for a Hollywood millionaire? Of course, your life is probably more interesting than mine, right? But I never know what they mean by living life to the fullest, okay? Because I'm a formerly morbidly obese man in his mid-40s who now has six-pack abs, okay? Is that living your life to your fullest? I have a wonderful wife and 3 wonderful kids, and we all had a blast at the Weird Al concert Wednesday night.
Yeah, me and Pritchett went to the Weird Al concert.
Yeah.
Separately, but with our families.
You took your youngest daughter, and our whole crew went, except for Zach, who lives in Arkansas, of course. Mm-hmm. So what I don't understand, I'm living my life exactly how I intend to, and if I abandon Christianity,
you'd still live pretty much the same life, is that what you're saying?
Right. Does abandoning Christianity...
Except that from what you've said in the past, if you didn't believe there was a God or Christianity was true, you might turn more evil.
Maybe.
I might. Because you have a black heart.
You think I'm a peach
dark
now?
Heart.
Yeah, if you think I'm a peach now, I might treat you worse than I do. I mean, but I'm gonna like atheists. What are or non-Christians in general? It's not just atheists; it's non-Christians who are even just generic theists. Like if I stop being a Christian, no, I'm not going to abandon my family and run off to a hippie commune or go rob banks or what. I mean, I don't get it. And so if you're going to ask me, I'm not living, what am I missing? Does living your life to the fullest mean not be a good husband? I might have to have a different job, though. If God didn't exist and I was convinced of that, I'd probably lie to you because there's no right or wrong there. So I just continue having a good job that I like. I mean, so I don't understand what I would be missing from life because I'm doing life exactly how I want it to be. So this idea that I'm using religion as a crutch, no, I would be fine without it. But I don't know what I'm missing if I got rid of it. What are you missing? What are you missing from life? What's holding you back from living life to the fullest?
As Brando rightly says, as always.
Yeah, of course.
It's more interesting to have a family and kids than to be a vapid millionaire playboy. Amen.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get back to Kevin O'Connor's question.
It's not just interesting, but fulfilling, I think.
Look. He says, do you at least agree that some people use religion as a crutch?
Absolutely agree with it.
At least in the same way that people use a job, an injury, or something like that. And he says, example, I know a lot of people use religion as an excuse to be antisocial hermits. But that is against what Christianity kind of presents, by the way.
Yes.
I also know people who use jobs as an excuse to be antisocial hermits. Yeah, there are people like that. I mean, that's totally true. And
yeah,
but first of all, not everyone does. And sometimes what you might call a crutch, I might call accepting the nature of reality. Like, for example, there are times where I don't know how I would have made it through a particular situation without God. Okay.
Yeah.
Now you might think I understand why you feel that way, but you would have gotten through it some other way or not, or whatever, but your belief about God is immaterial to all of that. But really it is the case that I've gotten through because of God, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Was that a crutch? Maybe sometimes you have to use crutches because sometimes your leg gets broken.
Yeah. I use religion as a crutch all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like in times of where I'm, faced with the problem of evil that affects me in an emotional level, not in a philosophical. When something bad happens, of course it's a crutch. It's a good crutch to have. It changes you when you rely on God.
And when you don't have that crutch, and
Yeah.
when you don't use, and people that won't use that crutch, if it is necessary, right? And I understand you don't think, but if it is necessary and you don't use it, you fall down a whole lot. And I think that, I think that not that your life is going to be worse or something, but we think you're going to make more mistakes.
Yeah, do you want crutches if you have a broken leg, or you want to hop on one leg and hope you don't tump over? Yeah. So in defense of...
And you need God in the midst of difficulty.
Yeah, it's just a trope that people get through life with using religion as a crutch. Complete the sentence. If you are leaning on it, you won't be living. That's what I'm responding to. Now, I want to say a word in defense of using religion as a crutch.
You did bring up monks as a good example of antisocial harm.
Yeah.
I'm going to defend monks in a minute when you get done.
I think it's good that religion offers a crutch to certain people.
Yeah.
There are people, like my friend Michael Stotler, okay? He had muscular dystrophy. He was a little Catholic boy, went to Catholic high school in Arkansas, faithful Christian, okay? He died at 18, right? And he knew that he wasn't, or at least he knew that his chance to live a long life wasn't very high, right? He knew that.
He knew that before he died?
Yeah, he had muscular dystrophy.
Yeah.
He was in a wheelchair. It was, And so for him, because he had accepted that Christianity was true, he went ahead and leaned into it, and he had the hope that one day he's going to have a body where he's fully restored. And if that helped him get through life, he lived a life. I mean, he was an amazing creative mind, super smart, super intelligent, but if that helped him, so what? The fact that it's also true, in our view, is even better because he will have a.
But you're saying even if it weren't true.
Well, that it's true, and you have it, it's awesome. But okay, but even if it wasn't true, so what?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's fine. But knowing that it's true, having that as a crutch is an amazing. It's a crutch made out of gold or platinum. I mean, why not use that? I mean, it's awesome. Be a baller with that crutch while you have it.
Well,
it's a pimp cane. What's the problem?
It's not a pimp cane.
You know what I mean?
It might be more like having steel-toed boots on a construction site in the crutch sense.
Yeah,
that's what Brando says.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've got gold-plated steel-toe boot or gold-toe boots.
So these are not compelling talking points from Sir Ian McKellen.
What did I do?
But they're common tropes that atheists on YouTube say all the time about, it's just a crutch to help you cope.
Yeah.
Everyone has crutches that help them cope.
Yeah.
Finding happiness at the bottom of a bottle is a dumber crutch than an afterlife.
But what about Uber Scheiser, who says if he believed in Allah and it helped him through life, would that have been good also?
Well, like I said, I was affirming the truth of Christianity. So, no, because that's believing what is false.
But I wanted to get back to
it might work for him as a coping mechanism, but I was going beyond that.
Monks are interesting, and I realize, and raised as an evangelical Southern Baptist, bad week to be a to be a Southern Baptist, but
that denomination
does not go there. We need to do a whole show about that. And I feel like
would you?
I might.
Yeah, I mean, because you always tell me to shut up about that.
No, I don't want you to shut up about it. I do want to devote more time to it. I want it to be a show. Say whatever you want about it right now. I don't care. I'm going to tell you right now. I think it's absolutely disgusting and despicable. And I know a lot of the people involved. And I think that I'm glad the truth is out. I hope that the Southern Baptist Convention learns from this. And you see, this is the thing. I hope they learn from it. I hope that we put into place the things that needed to be in place. I hope we do whatever we can financially or in any other way to help bring justice, restitution, not that you could ever make up for what's been done, those sorts of things. Are you surprised to hear me speak this strongly?
No. Because I know how much this really got to you.
Yeah, it's
because
really
you actually loved the Southern Baptist Convention. So
yeah, and several of the people that are involved are people I've sat in the room with.
Yeah,
including Johnny Hunt.
Yeah.
That's enough about that.
Yeah, all I'm going to say is I've been ranting about this and a bunch of other issues for years, and I told you so.
Yeah,
but
they'll get no defense on that from me. Yeah. The EC gets no defense from me on that.
No, but it's bigger than the EC. But it's for me, it's the SBC. It's time to do something else. You see why I said we need a different show? Yeah, for this. But you said you hope they learn. I hope they end it. Into the SBC. It was founded on slavery, and it's crumbling under sexual abuse, and then utter BS culture war stuff that they're fighting over that's tearing it apart anyway. Just stop. Everyone do something else. It's not worth it. The only reason why they don't is because they're greedy idolaters who want to fight over land and buildings and treasure. That's the only reason why they're still a denomination. The problem with that is that I agree with some of that, and I don't disagree with the sentiment. The thing about it is, you want to talk about, but the IMB and the NAM? You want to talk about how... No, I want you to let me say something. I can give you... I think that everyone who is involved in this kind of corruption needs to be found out and it needs to be put an end to. But these people you're talking about represent a percentage of Southern Baptists, and it ain't a big one. I'm not saying the people that are doing something. I'm talking about like the executive committee and the people who are like allowing it, whoever allowed it to happen or didn't take action, right? Or the churches that didn't take action. I'm saying the people in that category, we don't know how big it is, but we know how big the number of people are
who helped, at least at this point, who helped to cover stuff up, right? It's not the little old lady or the people that raised me or the people that you know from church who are wonderful, godly people who they may not have been able to get the dress they wanted for Easter Sunday, but they were going to make sure their church and their pastor had what he needed. And that man who wasn't going to be able to get the meal he wanted with the boys, but he was going to give no matter what, that make churches like these possible so we can have the evangelistic opportunities so people like you and me can be Christians today. The thing I want to see is I want everyone guilty taken down, and I want whatever needs to be fixed in the SBC to be fixed, because primarily the International Mission Board has potential to continue changing the world like it currently does, but more like it once did. And I don't want to see that disappear, because those guys then win. They don't just win in North America and in Baptist churches or whatever. They win when little children in developing world countries don't learn about Jesus because of this.
Well, like I said, you can just start something new. There's 45,000 churches. 44,000 of those churches did not deserve this to happen to them in their name. But as there's this idea in the West of hyper-individualism where we say that we're autonomous, not me, no, you put the SBC name on your church and you threw money at it. Mm-hmm. You don't get to say, I mean, there's a corporate responsibility for anyone who supported the structures that allowed that to fester. You know, it's just I don't know. And they didn't deserve that, because most pastors and most churches of all the 45,000, at least 44,000 of them have never had a single dirty thing go on, right? I mean, major like that.
Well, one of the things that irritates me so much about the EC and this whole churches are autonomous and all this whole thing, and and I've heard that my whole life. I have definitely heard that my whole entire life. But when you remove churches from the Southern Baptist Convention for X, Y, and Z, it's like, well, wait a minute. And when we know you had all these lists and all that, I don't want to get too much into all of that. But what was it you just said? There was something about that.
The corporate responsibility of throwing money at it.
Yeah, like saying it's autonomous. What irritates me is in 2001, at the first church I ever pastored, I knew enough to know, without having been through seminary or anything. Hey, there was a guy that started visiting our church, and he, I don't know who told me, but it came out that he was a sex offender. And immediately we started putting into place protocols, or made sure they were in place, where, the people that go around the kids, we know who they are, we know what their backgrounds are, and as best we can, we know and we thought about all that stuff, and we were concerned about that. And do you think that if one of my staff members came up to me and told me that something inappropriate like that happened that was criminal, do you think I wouldn't take that to the police? Absolutely. I don't know what's going on, that you get that big, I guess. Yeah. And there's so much respect and admiration and all of that on it. It's mind blowing. And this is how upset I am about it. I'm so ticked off. Well, like and relieved that it got out. And relieved that it's open.
Most of it's now down to 13 million some odd Southern Baptists are really wonderful people. Most of the pastors are just good pastors. Most of the churches have never had, anything serious or major happen that's part of this scandalous business. But a little leaven, Paul said it. I mean, and if you're attaching your name to something and you're throwing money at it and you allow this stuff from the top down to fester, and they knew they had the list, they were building a list and weren't stopping the people on that list from getting different jobs at different SBC. It's unconscionable.
All right, so let's get back to this thing about monks, because people are going to be looking at this and think, okay, Kevin
I told my wife that if she goes first, which God, I hope that I go first. I don't want to think about that, but if she does go first, that I might be a Protestant monk.
Well,
sounds good.
I would be not necessarily against that, and I'll tell you why.
And monks aren't always antisocial. By the way.
When you're studying the history of Christianity, one of the things you might learn about, or they might not even talk about this, is the importance of monasteries and monks, because the role they played, now whether you think this should happen or not or whatever, the role they played was Christians thought, okay, we need people, we believe in prayer, So why don't we have a group of men who are like praying all the time, like trying to affect the world with prayer? And this allowed them also to often do a little trade or something along the way. And it meant for a lot of quiet reflection and all that. But also if you've read something like, oh, come on, The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, you'll see that like what happens with a lot of times with monks is like what happened there with the priests that they were dealing with, is on the weekends, people might show up and ask questions because these monks sit around and read the Bible and pray all the time. So they become good people to give advice on Christian living and things like that. But I think there is something noble about the notion of, hey, do we believe in prayer? Well, then let's have some full-time prayer guys. I think that makes a certain amount of sense. Whatever else you want to say about
Brando
doctrine.
has a good question.
Where? Do you guys think it's true that nobody is worse than anyone else morally? No. Or is that more of an evangelical talk? Yeah, that's evangeli speak, as Jonathan calls it. Evangeli speak. Because as I've said, you can drop one drop of grape juice on a white carpet or dump a gallon on a white carpet. In both cases, what's true is that carpet's got to be changed or cleaned, right? Yeah. So in that sense, we're all equally damnable. But that doesn't mean that what we do, like sins, are all exactly the same, you know?
Right. No, there are people who
in terms of
way more morally reprehensible than
in
others.
Terms of level of rebellion, in terms of consequences, in terms of body count. Of course, that could be under consequences. How many people were hurt because of this? There's all kinds of things.
Yeah. Okay. So vertically, any sin makes you damnable. Okay. But horizontally, like comparing you to other people, relative goodness, there are people who are far better than others. There are some atheists who are far better people than a lot of Christians. Looking at you, discernment bloggers who are fading fast. There's some horrible people, human being dirtbags in the way they treat others, in the way the SBC Executive Committee, for example, are more morally reprehensible than Richard Dawkins probably in his personal life. He's just an old man doddering around pretending to be a scientist still. But I mean, horizontally comparing you relative goodness, not everyone's equally morally reprehensible. That's dumb.
Well, we've been at this for an hour, Jonathan. How do you folks like this particular streaming setup on the screen?
Why am I widescreen and you? I mean, is that just you? Just
one of the difficulties of this is sit up close to the screen camera for a minute. Well, here's the thing: it's hard to get everything on the screen you want to get on there well for a stream like this, if you want it to look good at all.
Yeah.
And so I'm just toying around with stuff.
No, I like this setup. I was just wondering if
it just made everything fit nicely.
If you didn't want to like make us both widescreen, but on the top half and I don't know why you did what you did, but or maybe you were like, maybe you thought that my backdrop looks better than yours, and so you decided to hone it in, or
I don't know. Kevin likes it.
Yeah.
If Kevin likes it, then it's got to be right.
Super chat. This is what happens. They start throwing money so that we keep going.
Well, that's a compliment, Jonathan, and they're throwing money. I mean, that's nice. We appreciate that. Do the Reformed go too far with worm theology? Yes.
Yes. In a general sense, if you want to take humanity considered altogether, I mean, maybe not. If you want to take the individualist approach, which they often do, and then they bring that worm theology into their Christian life, and they substitute holiness for how awful and wretched I still am in Christ. And I'm like, yeah, you're taking that too far, because if that's true and you really are no better of a person than you were before you got saved, you need to think about your calling and election and see that it's sure, because the Holy Spirit is not an absentee, do-nothing person of the Trinity.
Billy, those are actually my books. Jonathan's office, there are many, 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 many more books.
And better books.
But he doesn't have any kind of a setup. And we're actually in the same room. Hey, you're over there. Yeah. All right. Well, that was fun. This has been a blast. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Trinity Radio. I'm going to tell you something. There's a couple of things real quick, since you made it to the end, that I would love if you would do. Let's have a friend day. Do you know what a friend day is? Jonathan, do you know what a friend day is?
Yes,
when I pastored,
I did grow up in Southern Baptist Church.
when I pastored churches, they'd have friend day. I had one once a month when I pastored. And the idea was, on this particular day, I want you to bring a friend, right? And it was just kind of it's obvious what it is. Hey, let's do a friend day. And this friend day is a little different. It's not on a particular day. It's whenever you want. It's right now. And what you do is you find a Trinity Radio episode that you really like and share it publicly somewhere. We would really, really appreciate that. Anything else we need to say? Oh, tonight, if you've ever thought about getting Logos Bible software, tonight we're going to have a webinar. I posted about this on the community tab of the YouTube channel. And you can, if you don't have anything to do with Trinity College of the Bible and Theological Seminary, you can go to this webinar. You can get a deep discount on Logos Bible software, like better than what I think some professors get. So you want to be there for that. And if nothing else, we're going to do like a little Bible study using Logos, and I'll be there, and someone from Logos will be there. By the way,
7 o'clock Central Standard Time.
And if you become a Trinity, but you got to register. So go to the community tab and register on that. It's like one of the most recent posts. And if you become a Trinity student at any point, you'll get a deep discount too, as well as guidance on what needs to be in your Logos deal. So that for Trinity, hey, it's never a better reason to be a Logos person, never a better reason to go to that webinar. And for many of you, never a better reason to become a Trinity Bible College student than the reasons that are on offer right now.
My namesake says he signed up.
Mr. Green's going to be there. All right. And with that, we'll see you next time on Trinity Radio.